This wasn't a rivalry. It was a marketing trap, and Angel Reese walked straight into it. Everyone expected fireworks, a gritty rematch. Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark, side by side on basketball's biggest summer stage. Corporate sponsors were salivating. The media was calling it a cultural moment. Indiana, the heart of basketball country, was buzzing. This was supposed to be the weekend, the one that would finally push the WNBA into mainstream sports conversations. But instead, it fell apart before it even began, because the star who built the hype wasn't even there. Caitlin Clark was ruled out just days before All-Star Weekend after re-aggravating a lingering groin injury. In an instant, what was poised to be a must-see showdown became something else entirely. A spotlight with no star, a party with no host, and for Angel Reese, a backfired master plan. But let's not pretend this came out of nowhere. To understand what really went wrong, we have to rewind the clock. Back to college, back to LSU versus Iowa, that infamous 2023 national title game. That's where the seeds of this so-called rivalry were planted. Reese's "you can't see me" gesture went viral. Clark didn't respond, and the internet did what it does best. It turned a basketball game into a battle of personalities, narratives, and social media wars. Ever since then, Reese has embraced the role of heel, the disruptor, the one unafraid to stir the pot. And Clark? She's been the silent engine, breaking records, drawing crowds, letting her play do the talking. Different styles, different energies, but both undeniable forces. So when the WNBA scheduled their All-Star game in Clark's home state, it was more than just good marketing. It was fate. Reese and Clark in Indianapolis, a Hollywood script written in real time, and everyone bought in. Fans booked flights, hotels sold out, restaurants prepped for crowds, local businesses stocked up like it was March Madness. Then, everything cracked. Clark's injury was announced, and the ripple effect was immediate. Ticket prices plummeted, dropping 48% overnight, from $121 to $64. What was supposed to be the most expensive All-Star game in WNBA history suddenly lost nearly half its value. And that wasn't some abstract stat. It was raw evidence. Evidence that Clark isn't just a player, she's the product. But while Clark was sidelined, Angel Reese decided to seize the moment. Reebok rolled out her signature shoe campaign mid-weekend with full force. The message? I'm in your city. Giant billboards, social posts, Instagram stories playing bankroll freshes, take over your trap. It was brash. It was bold. And it backfired. Because without Clark there to respond, the campaign didn't feel like competition. It felt like performance art. It felt like someone pounding their chest in an empty arena. Reese had launched a full-blown marketing blitz in the city Clark was supposed to dominate. But with no actual showdown, the optics flipped. The campaign started to look less like confidence and more like opportunism. And the fans? They noticed. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube comments. It was everywhere. Some praised the hustle, but most, they questioned the timing. Why promote yourself as taking over when your supposed rival can't even lace up her shoes? Why frame it like a battle when the other side never showed up? And here's where the script breaks wide open. Because this wasn't the first time Reese's promos leaned on Clark's name. Her podcast's first few episodes, Clark-centric clips were all over the promos. Interviews, constant mentions. Brand pushes, more of the same. This rivalry may have started with the fans, but Reese's team ran with it, fast. That's not unusual in sports. Think McGregor, think Draymond. But here's the difference. When the other side stays silent, the whole thing starts to feel like shadowboxing. And without Clark to ground the story, Reese's energy bounced back awkwardly. It didn't ignite hype, it sparked backlash. And the numbers told the rest of the story. When Caitlin Clark couldn't suit up, it wasn't just the game that suffered. The entire weekend began to unravel, one piece at a time. First, the ticket prices, a near 50% drop. But it didn't stop there. Event packages through WNBA experiences that had sold out weeks in advance? Suddenly, fans were offloading them. Hotels that were charging premium rates began to see cancellations. Local restaurants that had stocked up expecting record crowds found themselves staring at empty tables. Clark's absence didn't just hurt attendance, it wrecked the economic ecosystem around the event. And here's the wild part. This wasn't the first time. Back in May, when Clark missed road games due to a quad strain, ticket resale values for those matchups fell off a cliff. In Washington, prices dropped 47%. In Chicago, they plunged 71%. No other WNBA player in history has had that kind of effect on demand. These aren't just impressive stats, they're seismic. They redefine what it means to be a draw. This is what sports economists call superstar economics. It's not about how many points you score, it's about how many people you pull in. And Clark doesn't just fill seats. She fills restaurants, moves merch, drives TV ratings, and inflates ad revenue. The WNBA had never seen anything like her. And when she vanished for the All-Star weekend, the market responded loudly. And yet, in the middle of that collapse, something else happened. Players took the court wearing shirts that read, "Pay us what you owe us." Now, let's be clear, those shirts weren't wrong. WNBA players are underpaid compared to their NBA counterparts. Travel conditions are often substandard, rosters are limited, maternity policies are outdated, and the league's media deal, while improving, still underserves the athletes. But timing is everything. Fans had just watched the value of their tickets drop by nearly half. Many had traveled across the country for one reason: to see Clark. With her out, the product they paid for no longer matched the hype, and now, as they sat in those seats, already questioning their investment, they were being told that the league deserves more money? To fans, it didn't feel like activism. It felt like detachment, and social media echoed that sentiment. People weren't dismissing the message, they were questioning the moment. Why now? Why this game? Why, when the product just lost 48% of its perceived value, would the players pick that exact time to demand more pay? It wasn't fair, but perception rarely is. Even WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert called the ongoing CBA negotiations productive and constructive. But players weren't buying it. They felt like their concerns were being brushed aside. And maybe they were. But that weekend, that wasn't the battle to fight. Not when the league's biggest name, the one actually generating the money, was sitting out. And that contrast, it couldn't have been clearer. While Clark remained silent, focused on recovery, her absence said everything. The league didn't just miss her talent, it missed her gravitational pull. Meanwhile, Reese pressed on, doubling down on her campaign. The billboards stayed up, the posts kept coming. The "I'm in your city" messaging intensified. But with each push, the narrative slipped further out of her hands. Because this wasn't a takeover, it wasn't a rivalry. It was a solo campaign with no opponent. A one-woman PR parade that left fans divided and the league on edge. One analyst described it best: Reese was throwing punches at air while the league's main event was on ice. And what made it worse? The numbers were unforgiving. TickPick data showed that the All-Star Game was originally trending toward being the most expensive in WNBA history, an average purchase price of $262. But after Clark's injury was confirmed, that record-setting number plummeted. And by the day of the game, it was $64. That's not just a cold stat. That's the market screaming that Clark isn't just a star. She's the star. She's not just important. She's essential. The market didn't lie. The fans didn't either. Without Caitlin Clark, the WNBA's momentum hit a wall, and hit it hard. But what does that really mean? Let's zoom out. The WNBA has been fighting for relevance for decades. Expansion talks, increased visibility, media rights. This league has been clawing for respect in a world built for men's sports. And then Caitlin Clark shows up. Not just as a scorer or a highlight machine, but as a brand, a movement. She didn't just bring fans, she brought new types of fans. Casual sports followers, NBA first guys, curious media outlets, parents, kids, entire demographics that had never tuned in suddenly couldn't look away. She didn't just boost attendance, she reshaped the WNBA's ceiling. But that kind of star power? It's rare and dangerous. Because when a league becomes dependent on one player to drive viewership, engagement, and revenue, it puts everything on a razor's edge. One injury, one absence, one off-season, and the entire operation starts to shake. That's not sustainable. That's not scalable. That's fragile growth hiding under flashy headlines. The Reese situation unintentionally highlighted that truth. Her campaign wasn't bad. It was bold, aggressive, strategic. She played the villain, leaned into the rivalry, and used her moment. But the problem? The script doesn't work without the hero, and in this case, the hero never showed up. Without Clark, the weekend lost its weight, the Reese campaign lost its bite, and the WNBA lost its central storyline. And while Reese made headlines, Clark made history, even in her absence. The 48% ticket drop? That's not just an economic stat, that's historical. The ripple effect stretched far beyond the arena. Concession sales, local tourism, broadcast viewership, even merchandise numbers took a dip. And while Angel Reese was on billboards, Clark was on everyone's mind. And that's the lesson. Reese might win press cycles, but Clark wins the market. She is the difference between a sold-out crowd and a stadium half full, between trending on Twitter and owning the algorithm, between polite applause and cultural relevance. And the WNBA knows it. Sponsors know it. Nike knows it. ESPN knows it. They've all tied their 2025 bets to Clark's continued rise. The next TV deal? Built around her highlights? The next merch drop? Built around her name? The next attendance surge? Dependent on her health? Even other players, consciously or not, are beginning to orbit around her gravity. And Reese? Whether she admits it or not, she's built a brand by standing in Clark's shadow. It's profitable, it's smart, but it only works when Clark is on the court. Because when she's not, the curtain drops, the illusion fades, and the campaign turns into noise. And that's where the WNBA finds itself now, at a crossroads. They've never had a player like this before, a cultural lightning rod, a fan magnet, a business driver. But now they have to answer the hardest question in sports. How do you build a league around one person without it collapsing when she's gone? That's not just a Caitlin Clark problem. That's an everybody problem. And it's one the WNBA must solve before the next injury, the next dip, the next misstep. Because this weekend, this messy, mishandled, dramatic, controversial weekend was the perfect case study. It showed us everything: the highs, the lows, the misfires, and the truth. Angel Reese proved she can sell a narrative, but Caitlin Clark proved she is the narrative. Reese might take over a city in slogans, but Clark owns it in silence. And next season, Clark won't just be back. She'll be coming with receipts, with headlines, with sold-out crowds, and with the kind of spotlight no billboard can buy. So if Reese wants to take the crown, she'll have to meet her in the arena, not on Instagram. Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark couldn't be more different on the court and off it. And that's exactly why this so-called rivalry got so big, and why it broke down so fast. Reese plays with emotion. She's loud, she flexes, she stares down her opponents, she leans into the drama, thrives on energy, and never shies away from the camera. That's her power. She's the agitator, the amplifier. Clark? She's surgical, a technician with a scorched earth jumper and court vision that's already being compared to NBA legends. She doesn't talk, she torches, no gestures, no memes, just cold, undeniable numbers. But here's the twist. Both styles are magnetic. They're different kinds of stars, but they orbit the same sun. Attention. The issue? Only one of them is consistently converting that attention into trust with fans, executives, and media partners. And that's why the rivalry became a spotlight test. Not of who's better, but of who's real. Because while Reese went viral with her "I'm in your city" campaign, Clark was going viral without saying a word. And in sports, silence speaks volumes. Reese tried to provoke. Clark didn't even blink. And in that silence, fans chose a side, not just based on performance, but based on authenticity. Let's talk about the media for a second. ESPN, Bleacher Report, Sports Illustrated. They all leaned into the rivalry narrative. They knew it sold. Two young stars, opposites, tension. Storylines like that are a content goldmine. But behind the camera, even producers knew the truth. Reese needed Clark more than Clark needed Reese. And that imbalance became obvious as soon as Clark stepped off the court. With her gone, the story collapsed. No duel, no showdown, no payoff, just marketing dust and disappointed fans scrolling through refund policies. This isn't about blaming Reese, she's smart. She saw an opportunity and took it. But what the weekend exposed was something much deeper, the WNBA's growing pains. They've never had this kind of mainstream spotlight before. And when it hit, the league was still playing catch-up. Infrastructure, salaries, public relations, all still catching up to the attention that Clark delivered overnight. Think about that. One player enters the league, and the whole system has to be reevaluated. The CBA is being renegotiated faster than expected. Sponsorship tiers are being restructured. Franchises are looking at expansion markets. Travel accommodations, maternity protections, salary tiers, all of it is back on the table. Why? Because when someone like Clark comes along, the whole business model has to stretch or risk snapping. And that means pressure, not just on Clark, but on everyone around her, including Reese. Because whether she likes it or not, Reese is now part of that system. And the way she moves, how she brands herself, how she plays, how she engages fans, matters more than ever. She's not just building her own empire, she's shaping how the league is perceived. The problem? The All-Star Weekend showed what happens when that responsibility isn't taken seriously enough. Reese had a chance to share the spotlight, to lift the league alongside her peer, but instead, she tried to own it. Alone. And fans didn't buy it. Because real greatness isn't about shouting the loudest, it's about showing up when it counts. And that's what people are waiting for. Clark will be back. That's inevitable. She'll recover. She'll improve. She'll take the floor again. And when she does, all eyes will be watching. Not just to see what she scores, but to see how the league handles it. How other stars step up. How the media covers it. How the rivalries evolve. Will Reese meet her there with performance, not promos? Will the WNBA build infrastructure that supports, not just survives, this moment? Will other stars find their voices without needing to stand in Clark's shadow? These aren't just basketball questions, they're cultural ones. Because what we're really watching isn't a feud between two players. It's the growing tension of a league trying to define itself. One that's finally getting national attention, and now has to decide what it wants to do with it. So yes, the rivalry might be one-sided. Yes, the campaign might have backfired, but that doesn't mean it's over, because the stage is still set, the spotlight is still burning. And next season, everything resets. Every storyline comes back. Every rivalry gets a second chance. And if Angel Reese really wants to take over the city, there's only one way to do it: on the scoreboard. Until then, the numbers don't lie, the fans don't forget, and the league doesn't move unless Clark does.